such a Tory high-flyer, potential Fog leader and Prime Minister, does she still support it?
Nick, the decision has been made on national insurance. That was a collective decision, and it's going ahead.
So you would not support the idea of delaying it in any way?
I'm not going to comment on internal discussions. As I've said, the cost of living rise is a concern for the government. I know the Chancellor is looking at what can be done.
So that does therefore really allow me to ask the question for a third time. If the Chancellor were to say, I tell you what, I think we need to delay NI, would he gain your support?
I'm not going to debate internal government policy on LBC, much as you want me to, Nick.
Neither and Churchill, that one, haven't she? And yesterday, playing the role of Bob the Builder, the Prime Minister was in North Wales, and he was asked to defend that hike in April.
Every penny will go towards fixing the COVID backlogs and also social care. And the two things are connected. Don't forget, you're talking.
In 300 yards, keep right to continue towards Tons Lane, A355. Keep right. In a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the first exit onto the M4 slip road to London Heathrow Airport.
backbenches. I mean, you have to remember that for years when Gordon Brown was jacking up national insurance, the Tories were going around calling it a jobs tax, and quite rightly so, because it is a tax on employment. It's not paid, for example, on earnings from investments and anything else, on capital gains and so on. So I think that it will help him a little bit, but the question really is, you know, has the sort of move against him acquired such momentum that it's unstoppable now? And you know, the trouble is,
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
The more the Tory MPs move against Boris Johnson, the Tory poll ratings go down, and that of course increases pressure on the Prime Minister. So, you know, when Sue Gray's report comes out, you know, the national insurance business, even if he has delayed the rise, may become irrelevant. He may be on his way anyway.
All tracks back to Owen Paterson last year, Ross?
Oh, well, definitely that was the big moment at which support for him seemed to drain away, and I mean, I think that was a particularly tin-eared response from him to try to respond in that way.
So effectively, he's Prime Minister in name only. He has to read the rooms or try and read the wind or whatever it might be of his Tory colleagues to stay in post.
Well, he is Prime Minister. He's still got the power, but yeah, clearly there is a lot of anger on the Conservative backbenches about this tax rise, and particularly the timing of it, coming in April when energy bills are going to be going up by around 50%, and you've got general inflation is up above 5%. You know, it's a triple whammy hitting households at the moment, and you know, if you're the Prime Minister, you've made levelling up your big great selling point, then you know, it's not a great idea to you know.
To proceed with this, Ross, I'll leave it there. Ross Clark, thank you. A columnist and writer for a number of publications, including The Spectator and also the Daily Mail. A reference again, 2 pages in what's called a 2-page spread. Way to save 12 billion from the NHS. Now, be honest, I want to ask you, you'll have heard about this round. In all honesty, do you actually know how much you pay in national insurance? Have you actually felt like, or are you just listening to the media and understandably MPs getting in? So when I give you the figures, is this the first time you've heard what it means to you? If you're making £20,000, you'll pay an extra £130, 30,255, 50,000, 505. To be honest, those are the first time you've heard those figures. So, does it worry you that much? Or is the argument that if you're making £50,000 per annum, that's £1,000 a week, £505 towards tackling the issues of social care, you could argue is money well spent? Take your views on that in a moment. Coming up after the news, in other news.
A diver who says he mowed down a man who was stabbing a woman to death in Maida Vale has begged police to de-arrest him. And OBC's Rachel Venables with the story.
And farewell to Barry Cryer.
What he told more recently was the couple going out to dinner, and the wife had a new dress and she's getting ready in the bathroom, and she came out of the bathroom and said to her husband, "Does my bum look big in this?" And he said, "Oh, be fair, love, it's quite a small bathroom."
That's Barry Cryer recording his own ode at 7:16. LBC News headlines. Simon Conway.
A possible delay to the national insurance increase is reportedly being considered by Boris Johnson, who's under pressure from some in his own party. President Biden has warned his Ukrainian counterpart there's a distinct possibility of Russian military action in February. University lecturers across the UK have announced up to 10 days of strikes. LBC weather mainly fine in the south, becoming cloudier with some rain in the north and west, a high of 12 degrees.
LBC travel, I'm Joanne. We're very slow on the M25, anti-clockwise, junction 25 at the A10 after an accident, and then it's slow anti-clockwise at junction 24 at Porter's Bar because a lorry has broken down. There are queues of about 3 miles on the M40 southbound to junction 4 at High Wycombe, and that's after an accident. Lots Road is closed both ways between Chelsea and Fulham, and that's because of an ongoing police investigation. On the train, Southeastern and Thameslink services are suspended between Dartford and Strood. That's because of an investigation at Gravesend. Severe delays on TfL rail between Paddington and Reading. The Great Western Railway are suffering with minor delays on that stretch, and it's after a track problem.
This is LBC.
The TUI Live Happy sale is here, with thousands of free kids places available this summer. Splashing sorted. Savings of up to £300 per booking. Dreamy. And huge discounts on over products are protected, so relax. Get booking. TUI. Live happy. Booking T's and C's apply, subject to limited availability on selected holidays for a limited time. See website for details.
Call Nick Ferrari now. 0345 6060 973 LBC.
COVID-19 particles gather in the air like smoke. In enclosed spaces, these particles can build up over time, so it's harder to avoid breathing it in. So if you have any COVID-19 symptoms, however mild, take a PCR test immediately. And always stay home if the test is positive, so you don't breathe COVID-19 onto others. Stop COVID-19 hanging around.
Give your new kitten the love they deserve, and Pets in a Pickle will cover the rest. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinthepickle.co.uk.
At Coral, we always want you to gamble responsibly, with tools to help you stay in control. You can set daily, weekly and monthly deposit limits to manage your spend. Track how long you play for, or set timeouts and take a break. Remember, always play within your limits and gamble responsibly. 18 plus, terms and conditions apply and are available at coral.co.uk. BeGambleAware.org.
We're all more or less in the business of adjusting. More record keeping, less device beeping. More troubleshooting, less idle commuting. More network connecting, service perfecting, partner selecting, team directing, payment collecting, and less of the messy rest. Amounts matter, like how much, how long, and when. Getting business right means getting just the right amount of everything, including insurance. Superscript, monthly business insurance shaped around you.
This is what Monday feels like when you find a great new job at read.co.uk. Fluffy, adorable, majestic. So cute you just want to give it a little scratch under the cheeky chin chin. Oh, I never knew Monday could be so sweet. Love Mondays again. Find a job that'll get you purring at read.co.uk.
From romantic red roses to thoughtful gifts for all the saints in your life. Zingflowers.com. Amazing every Valentine's.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
With the British Airways American Express Accelerating Business Card. Earn Avios while you spend.
20 minutes after 7, let's look at the front pages of the newspapers and, of course, the LBC website. And there is this growing sense that there will be a delay of national insurance. I've already mentioned that once. This comes to the front page of the IPM's plan for cost of living crisis delayed due to Downing Street turmoil. The Times, Johnson may delay national insurance rise to secure survival. And the front page is the Guardian, wasn't it? Yes, Treasury alarm. PM refuses to confirm national insurance rise. Why is there an alarm? Just to give you that figure again, £12 billion. But again, if you're making, say, £30,000, it's £255 that you will lose. If you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you're making £100,000, it's over £1,000. It's 1,130. This story also leads the LBC website. National insurance rise to be scrapped. PM wobbling over tax hike plans. Other stories now. Here's an interesting one. Are you enjoying working from home? Well, that's cost the Treasury almost £500 million. Why? Because you can claim tax rebate if you're working from home. Did you know that? You see? Even if you do a day working from home, you're eligible for it. Now they want to close the front page of the Telegraph. I'll give you more details in the next hour. Talking about cash, the 600 Whitehall fat cats paid over £150,000 is the Daily Mail. Rightly even, stoking a deal of controversy and concern. If they're making that kind of money, is it really that much to ask to get them off their pelotons and to come into the office? Daily Express, Boris allies don't repeat Thatcher betrayal. That's a sort of overall piece about the fact the murmurings and possibly even the plotting. The Metro Plan A, okay, bear in mind the Metro is pretty much all delivered to railway stations, tube stations and bus stations, so it's a massive commuter paper, and I would suggest therefore it is the right smash for them, and they point out that millions returned to public transport yesterday. The Sun, plonkers. This is one of the stars of Only Fools and Horses, Patrick Murray, who says that the BBC would never allow parts of Only Fools and Horses to go ahead. He says possibly they wouldn't even use the word plonker. And the Daily Mirror finishes out Palestine. Palace's sex trial fear. Well, of course, the headline, as I've told you before, is 6 words you shout out of the window at your neighbour. It's war or Ukraine invaded. Palace's sex trial fear. Well, it's 4 words. I don't quite know what it means. But when you drill down, it's the top royal's fear that were he to appear in court, what testimony he gave or how he might be questioned could severely, possibly irreparably, damage the monarchy. Let's come back to matters here, and the national insurance rise. Steve's in Ashford. Steve, you're on the radio. Good morning. I mean, how worried are you by that?
Morning, Nick. Thanks for having me on. I'm not worried about the increases at all. I mean, I went around on it, so it's, I think just for people struggling, it's the rent's the problem, because if rents were set by local councils, fair rents, if you like.
In 2 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Do you think everybody has hundreds of pounds to spare? You said people have hundreds of pounds to spare each month. Do you think everybody does, Steve?
No, Nick, what I'm saying was, if people are paying, like my daughter lives in a house yesterday, £1,100 a month.
Right.
Her boyfriend earns £2,000 a month, so more than half of his wage would be the rent.
Yeah.
If the rents were set by councils to areas, fair rents, not just put what you want, people potentially could have hundreds of pounds.
I hear what you're saying. There is a strong argument for rent control. It's whether you want more state involvement. Do you want the state deciding what rates are set? To me, that's a little bit communist that they decide how much people charge. Because I would argue, and I don't mean to be confrontational about your daughter, but let's look someplace else. I mean, that is a vast amount of money for the fellow if he's only making 2,000. He's got to pay. Can we not look at somewhere different?
Yeah, but if we set, it's not so much for control. It's a control of the landlords. Just they can literally ask what they want nowadays, and there's no, and people have got to pay it. And if people have got spare money, Nick, and they're spending more money, that would also help people that have got mortgages, because then you wouldn't have so much inflation and the interest rate wouldn't need to go up. So it could affect everyone across the board. But I think the rents are out of control.
I think there may be separate arguments. I'm sorry to hear about your daughter and her boyfriend's predicament, and I hope they find somewhere. But again, I would argue, Steve, and I know what you're saying because of your daughter, and there's nothing more precious to you, but be careful what you argue for, giving the state control to, because I know you're saying local authorities, but ultimately that is the state control of rents. It's an interesting one. We will continue this conversation later. Simon, you'll be the next caller on that in a moment. Now, sadly, a day I feared would always dawn, and I had the pleasure, I only met him on a handful of occasions, but what a top bloke. And laughing to the very end, sharing a joke. Unfortunately, I can't tell on the radio, but I'll try and help you along to understand it. I speak of farewell Barry Cryer.
My short-term memory shot to pieces. And I'll tell you something else. My short-term memory shot to pieces. About the guy who shot a golden eagle. And he was in court in front of a magistrate. And the magistrate said, "This is a dreadful thing." He said, "I never intended to. I was shooting pheasants and it flew into my line of fire. Complete accident." The magistrate said, "Okay." And he said, "As a matter of interest, what did you do with it?" He said, "I ate it." The magistrate said, "Good God, what did it taste like?" He said, "Rather like swans."
There's a man sitting opposite a sweet old lady on the train. And when the train sets off, she takes a Bible out of her bag and begins to read from it silently. Next station, boom, Bible back in the bag. Happens again, train sets off, takes the Bible out. Next station, Bible back in the bag. Now it's riveted. And it happens a third time, and he's getting off the train soon, he can't bear it. And he said, "Do excuse me?" She said, "Yes." He said, "Every time the train leaves the station, you take your Bible out of your bag and read from it." "Yes, yes, I do, yes." When we get to the next station, you pop your Bible back in the bag. "Yes, yes." "Do forgive me, why are you doing this?" She said, "Why don't you..."
What he told more recently was the couple going out to dinner, and the wife had a new dress and she's getting ready in the bathroom. And she came out of the bathroom and said to her husband, "Does my bum look big in this?" And he said, "Oh, be fair, love, it's quite a small bathroom."
A man walks into a cake shop and says,
"Yes, go on."
"Do you sell wasps?"
Ah, one of his best, yes, I remember that. And the man said, "No, we don't sell wasps." He said, "You've got one in the window."
Barry Cryer, welcome along. Did you know Barry Cryer?
I knew him all his life. Yes. I feel the loss terribly.
Was he a friend?
Very close. We were just stitched to the hip, you know, we were like one person. It was that close.
Often in his lifetime, when fellow comics died, he would be one of the first to be called on to pay tribute, wouldn't he?
Yes, he was the stock casting for that. He was always being rowed in to talk about friends who'd gone. Sorry, I'm feeling a bit emotional.
Now, the gag there is Barry Cryer recording his own obit back in 2012. He's now sadly died at 86. Let's turn to Omid Jalali, who's actor, comedian, and worked with, I think, Mr. Cryer, Barry, in his last professional engagement, the back end of last year on a radio comedy show. Omid joins me now. Was it September you taped that show? Morning to you.
Hi Nick, how you doing?
Yeah, good.
Good to see. Can you see me? I can see you.
I see you clearly. It is good to see you. It's for all the wrong reasons, though. Although heaven suddenly became a funnier place last night, I suggest.
It did, yes. And I tell you something. I was at his very last recording of the British institution of "I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue," which he was part of for 50 years, and was not just part of it. He was probably the heartbeat of it. And when they introduced you, this is the Reading Hexagon, there's 1,200 people there. They said, please welcome Omid Jalali, and they said our names. And then when Barry Cryer was mentioned, just the roar. And I've heard roars. I've heard people be excited, but the roar he had was unbelievable. And I think it gave him such a lift, because when we were rehearsing and talking before, he kept saying, I can't hear you, love, I'm not feeling well, I'm not long for this world. And then when he had the roar, my God, the Barry Cryer that we've seen for the last 50 years just came to life, and he was absolutely brilliant.